Welcome to the podcast. I'm Zachary Zelders, and I'm here with the special guest, Ashley Long. Ashley, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ashley Long. I am a junior here at University of Iowa with Communication Studies and a minor in cinema, and I'm a huge weeb, so I am ready to discuss whatever you want to discuss with me today.
All right. Well, I don't know if our listeners know what that means, but we'll move along. Today we're going to be talking about queer theory and video games, and queerness in video games. Queer
My
theory
favorite topics.
is a scholarly field that is used to analyze media and messages through a lens of non-heteronormativity, and queer theory examines how certain works practice heteronormativity and how they break away from heteronormativity. And so our specific focus with today's show is to discuss the ways in which video games practice queerness, specifically the Kingdom Hearts series, which is one of the highest selling game series of all time. So Ashley here is a bit of an expert on Kingdom Hearts, and I was hoping, Ashley, that you could give us a rundown about what this series is all about.
All right. Well, to explain Kingdom Hearts, the whole lore of it would involve 13 hours of your time, so I'll give you the brief, simple explanation, since it's known for a very complex plot. But the simple version is that there's this boy who is a Keyblade wielder, and that's very important in this game series. And so he travels to many different worlds, which is owned by Disney properties, and he tries to find Heartless and try to defeat them so then the world can find peace. I guess that would be a basic gist of it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's a weird game where you have like a Japanese anime boy, and he does what you say he does. Heartless are like these creatures that have no hearts. They actually have hearts, but their hearts are corrupted by darkness, so their name is kind of misleading. But this whole discussion is pointless because we just sound like massive nerds, and anybody who's listening to this podcast probably doesn't care. Okay, so I wanted to start by just giving some context as to why we're examining this series through the lens of queer theory. Video games are not known for really practicing queerness or having gay characters or trans characters, especially trans characters. I mean, I can't think of a single trans video game character.
Neither can I.
Even in game series that are celebrated for their diversity, like Overwatch.
But they do have plans for trans characters.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that. But you're the expert on Overwatch, so I shouldn't have even touched it. But Kingdom Hearts, what I find interesting about the series is that the first game opens with this character dynamic between Sora, a young boy, Riku, another young boy, and Kairi, a young girl. And so in context,
Sora is the main character.
Yeah. Sora's the main character. Riku's also kind of doubles as a main character later on in the series. But the setup in the first game, it seems it seems like Kairi is supposed to be a love interest for both of them, and it's going to be a love triangle.
Yeah, that's how they try to set it up.
Yeah. And how would you say, later on in the series, what does the dynamic become?
Freaking Kairi gets kicked to the curb. And she gets more developed as their own independent character instead of just being the love interest as the series goes on. But the more focus goes on between the relationship between Sora and Riku as it goes farther in.
Uh-huh. And while it's not it's not blatantly gay.
No.
It's not a gay relationship. But it's been read as one by a lot of the fan base, and for good reason.
Yeah, it's not just the typical watching a show and you see two people talk two words to each other and just instantly ship them. This is they actually, a lot of the language, especially in like Dream Drop Distance, which we'll probably get more into later, really like the language between them and the way they describe each other is very similar to how a couple would describe each other, or two people who are in love would describe each other.
Yeah.
And something I would like to mention that, like, while American games do kind of incorporate more gay characters nowadays, especially with famous games like The Last of Us and the DLC, and even casually in Splatoon in the new game, Japanese culture is very behind in regards to the normative of homosexual relationships. They don't. It's not very looked upon, and it's in a lot of television won't even premiere stuff that contains homosexual relationships in television in Japan, while America will. You know, it's been even in like Friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, regardless of the intent of like their relationship between Sora and Riku, it's just interesting because even if like the original intent is for them to be lovers, the game creator, who's Japanese and the whole game series is created in Japan, they couldn't do that because most likely their game could be like get a completely different rating based on that.
Yeah.
So I think it's even more interesting to analyze their relationship because even if they are meant to be like that, it cannot be blatantly told like that unless they want to get in trouble in Japan.
Yeah. It's such a good point, and I'm glad that you have that knowledge because that gives this whole idea like a lot more context when discussing Kingdom Hearts as a Japanese game. But you know, like I see that in so many Japanese games that I play. Like just recently, I was playing Dragon Quest XI, which is another role-playing game similar to Kingdom Hearts, except like turn-based, but that's irrelevant. There's a character named Sylvando in Dragon Quest XI who's just extremely flamboyant, and like he flirts with all the male characters in the game. Like he just seems like he's meant to be a gay character, but it's never touched on, and he never like is outwardly gay. It just seems like it's being hinted at, or like they're dodging around the issue. You know? Yeah.
And I think I remember hearing that in the American version they really do play it up more because they realize how much of a gay character he's supposed to be. Uh-huh. And so in without really ruining the aspect of the original Japanese version, they just played up more to really show his true character. And I find that interesting.
That's an interesting point to bring up because the original Japanese version of the game didn't have fully voice acted dialogue. So in the American version, they were the first ones to give the characters in the game voices, and that makes sense now that they would play that up. And maybe it's because American audiences are more accepting of the thing than Japanese audiences are.
I think so too. I think that if they played him as much as the American version has, then Sylvando might have not been able to get as much popularity as a character because he could have been instantly disliked, or like not many male gamers in Japan would buy it because they're like, oh, there's a gay character in it. That's gonna make me seem less manly if I buy it. So I think that's interesting too.
Yeah, and like, you know, a lot of games are still marketed towards young men. Like the target demographics for games are increasingly becoming more even. I read something recently where the ESA put out a study and they said like it was like 45% of gamers are women now, which
represent.
Which is a kind of big change. Like it feels like in recent years women have really gotten into gaming in a big way, and maybe that's why we're seeing games like Overwatch that are actually attempting to appeal to a wider audience than just young adolescent men.
It's true because the main symbol of Overwatch is currently Tracer, and it has been since the beginning, especially with the advertisement of her cosplay. But the character, she's like powerful. Yes, she has a sexy bod, which attracts the male characters, but she's also gay, and like something that a lot of the LGBTQ community can relate to, especially women that are also gay. And she's never crying for help. She's just a strong female character, and I definitely agree with that point, especially with a lot of the other characters in the Overwatch. Like, I can't think of a single female character that's always begging for help or plays like the cliche like female sex icon in video games that they used to do back in the bad old days. No, not bad old days, but the days when women were only seen as sex objects in video games or it's things to save.
Yeah, it's like Duke Nukem 3D, where it had a button that you could press to put strippers to put money into strippers' bras. Or Grand Theft Auto has kind of a bad history with the treatment of women in those games.
Of course not.
But bringing it back to Kingdom Hearts. Bringing it back to Kingdom Hearts. I want to talk more about Riku and Sora's relationship and the fandom surrounding it and the ways in which people have written slash fiction and
Oh yeah, because slash fiction's always been a big thing, especially since for American culture the start of Star Trek. But in Japan it's always been a big thing, especially with the female community. In Japan there's a community called the yaoi community, which is basically they love male on male relationships, and Japanese girls will write and read mangas that are based on these relationships. And so even without any connection between Sora and Riku, girls would still write about them because they're just two cute boys that they're like, ooh, we should see them together. But what makes it more interesting is that some of those things start becoming more clear that they might actually have those feelings for each other. And I remember when I played the game when I was 8. I don't remember. It was really young. I played it with my brother. And even as a kid, I remember thinking when I first played the first game how uninteresting Kairi was and the relationship between all of them and Kairi. And I was more interested to find the relationship between Sora and Riku, even just as a kid, because they had a more interesting dynamic than Kairi did.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, but I have a different history in the series than you do. Mm-hmm. You being the one that got me into the series just recently, and I got horribly addicted and played through all of them in like a mad 2-month-long binge, keeping in mind everybody that these games are each about 40 hours, and there's 10 of them.
I was pretty impressed, I gotta say.
Yeah, I have no life. But
tell them something that's new.
I agree completely. And it seems like the game knows that too. That their dynamic is more interesting because the last full title that released in the series, Dream Drop Distance, the whole game is about their relationship. And it's about how their hearts are connected, and it's kind of cute, and it's also kind of romantic. And I also wanted to mention that people who don't play the games won't have any idea what I'm talking about, but Sora currently has 5 boys in his heart.
That's true.
There's a bunch of boys in the game that connected with Sora's heart, and now they reside within him.
I know that sounds nuts, but there's a whole complicated backstory along with that.
Yeah, I don't feel like explaining that.
No, it's okay, you don't have to. But there's a lot of hints towards at least showing affection between two male characters.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's romantic or not.
Yeah.
And something we should mention is that the creator of the games, what's his name?
Tetsuya Nomura.
Yeah, you always say his name better. Tetsuya Nomura. He's created other games. He's been a big contributor to a lot of Final Fantasy games, as you've told me before. And that's the reason why he started getting into the games, is finding out about, he's the one that's been creating the Kingdom Hearts series. And there's a lot of rumors about him, about his sexuality, and and I feel like that's an interesting thing to bring up in regards to how he writes his characters.
Yeah, I agree. He's a very interesting person. He's very flamboyant in public, extremely eccentric, even like his sexuality isn't like it doesn't even need to be mentioned because nobody knows what his sexuality is. But you could say that Tetsuya Nomura practices queerness. You know, he the way he dresses, the way he acts, the characters that he designs, they all go against like the norms of like heteronormative society, and like it like a lot of his character designs in Final Fantasy and kind of Kingdom Hearts has like boys, you know, like skinnier boys wearing like kind of skimpy clothes. It almost like sexualizes them at times, if you know what I mean.
I don't think he sexualizes them, but I think he does make them what would be the good word for it?
He makes it, well, in Kingdom Hearts he doesn't sexualize them because these are kids games.
Yeah. But in Final Fantasy.
But he in Kingdom Hearts though, he does make them like very pretty boys.
Oh yeah, they're very pretty boys.
Very handsome.
And like, yes, the girl characters are very pretty as well, but I think the biggest difference is the way they're written.
Yeah.
You know, Kairi is kind of written as, especially in the first game and a little bit of the second game, she's written very like a cliche, stereotypical girl who just needs to be rescued and stuff like that. And later on, he gets the creator gets really better at writing the female characters, especially with Aqua, who becomes a very important character later on. She's a very strong and powerful character. But, like, it just seemed like he was less interested in Kairi and writing her than he was versus Sora and Riku. Yeah. And, like, I think that's where the big difference shines. In not just in character design, but also the way they're portrayed and written. And
he also doesn't seem like he's interested in developing a relationship between Sora and Kairi or Riku and Kairi anymore.
It's true. I feel like it's like, if there's any, it's kind of forced. Because I feel like, obviously, the Disney company owns rights to it because all the worlds are Disney-owned properties. And so they probably, especially not only in the Japanese company, Square Enix, be having to force them to make, if there's any relationship, it has to be heterosexual. But also the Disney company themselves, they probably wouldn't, especially at the time these games were created, would have definitely not wanted anything like that in their games. Yeah. Especially with their brand and name attached to it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but it seems like even still a lot of Disney has been falling behind in like queer representation or LGBT characters in their films.
I know in TV shows, like their Disney Channel shows and live actions, there's been some recent changes. Like I think in one show, the main character is actually gay, and like in some of the cartoon animations, they've started to announce that some of them have same-sex relationships and stuff like that. But no, in regards to their movies and their main products, it's definitely like lacking in the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, they've got more money in movies. I don't think they see LGBTQ representation as something that's profitable, which I don't think is true. I think people are more accepting of it now, and I think the majority of society would not be off-put by that. I think that's like it's just a step that a lot of like film studios have been scared to take.
Yeah. Because
they've been doing it that way for so long that they're worried that it will impact their sales. But like in class, we talked about Ellen DeGeneres coming out. And her fame just exploded after that, you know.
That's true.
It was like it was a coming out that was like directed at her straight audience, but at the same time, like they all seemed to be pretty accepting of it. If she just exploded in fame, got her own talk show, her show got canceled, but I don't know. That's a difficult subject. But anyways, what were we talking about? Disney?
Yeah, and obviously, like, a part of me hopes, like, maybe that gets developed more in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah.
I really doubt it will, you know, especially since it's still a very Japanese company. And even if they got the okay from Disney to do it, they probably couldn't get Square Enix to agree to it. But, I don't know. I hope that it can hint at it more if it's true. If that's what he was going for when creating these characters. That it can be more developed and well fleshed out in the third game.
Yeah.
Even if they can't straight out say it.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope so. That would be awesome.
That would be really awesome.
I know a lot of fans would be very excited about that, myself included, because I'm like totally on that team now.
Well, I mean, because they were a really good pair. They bounce off each other really well. And they started off as, like, best friends with, like, classic competitiveness against each other, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just... I'm trying to think of specific examples of, like, how it's developed, like a traditional romance story, you know? Like a teen romance story.
Yeah.
You know, they start off as friends, and they're, like, eventually end up going against each other because of some outside force, you know? And so they end up hating each other. Well, Sora doesn't hate him, but he tries his best to bring Riku back.
Yeah.
And so Riku's just going through teenage rebellious stage with, you know, the Dark Lord and stuff like that. Just classic teenage things. So, and then, like, as time goes on, Sora's able to bring him back and, like, put him in the good side again. And this helps Riku like, conquering these issues, which could be, like, correlated with depression and things like that. That's a whole different podcast.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a lot of stuff that, like, not only just best friends would do for each other, but people who really love and care about each other would do.
Yeah. I agree completely. That's a really good point. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be discussing more about Sora and Riku's relationship and how that goes back to the game possibly having a queer narrative. We're going to be talking about the elements of the game, such as the menus, the combat, maybe seeing if that has something to do with it. And we're going to be talking about the ways that the game can be improved and why it matters. So we're going to leave you with some music from the game series, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Alright, welcome back to what we've just named the A to Z podcast. Because she's A and I'm Z.
Ashley, Zach. Yeah.
Very creative.
Yeah. Honestly, it is cute, though.
It is cute. Alright. Where did we leave off? We were going to talk more about Sora and Riku and why they should be gay.
Well, I explained a little bit about their...
Yeah.
Like, kind of the path of, like, what a romantic relationship would kind of contain.
Yeah. I want to give an example, though.
Yeah,
of,
ahead.
like, a part where, like, it just struck me, and I'm like, man, these characters are... Come on.
Yeah, it's true, though, because I remember when I first talked to you about the game, and I mentioned it at some point, before you even really got too into it, I was like, oh, yeah, like, Sora and Riku are totally gay for each other. And you kind of laughed it off. You're just like, haha, you know, because silly weeble Ashley just... making these claims, you know. I make that claim with every anime I watch. But after you came to me after, especially Dream Job Distance, you were like, oh shit, Ashley, they're just totally gay for each other.
Yeah. And I kind of started seeing that in, like, Kingdom Hearts 2. I didn't see it in the first game, because they kind of have Kairi as, like, a love interest in the first game.
Yeah.
And I really don't dig that, especially after seeing how good Sora and Riku are for each other. There's a moment in Kingdom Hearts 2 where, like, Sora is reunited with Kairi and Riku after not having seen them for a long time. And Sora looks Kairi dead in the eyes like she's just like a piece of old meat. And he's just like, oh, hi, Kairi. And then he sees Riku and he loses his shit. And they, like, run into each other's arms and embrace. And Sora starts crying and, like...
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
I was just like, whoa. That's when I noticed that, come on. Like, Nomura, like, you can argue for, like, a certain amount that author intent doesn't matter, but come on, like, Nomura has to mean for, like, there to be something more there than just a friendship, like, because if if Kairi was meant to be, like, the original romantic interest, like, then why is Sora's relationship so much more intense with Riku, you know?
No, I completely agree with that. I completely forgot about that scene, but I remember it now, and, yeah, you're right, though. And something that's actually noticed in the Kingdom Hearts 2 start from that game and onward, that Kairi kind of just diminishes as a love interest. Even, like, by just writing-wise. Like, yes, Sora wants to protect Kairi and wants to help her and stuff like that. But he's way more concerned about Riku throughout most of it than he is about Kairi.
Yeah.
And especially in, like, the other games, you know? And she kind of starts... not becoming a love interest, but starts becoming somebody who can actually help out or, like, contribute to some story in some other way besides just being rescued. And, yeah, that goes into developing her character more, but also it's just kind of, while developing her character, it just kind of separates more the relationship with each other and kind of just more as friends.
Yeah.
While Riku and Sora, on the other hand, become more somebody as like a couple.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. There's other characters we could actually be talking about too that, like, man, like these games have like a lot of like not gay relationships, but kind of like it just seems suspect that Nomura would include so many bromances in this game. Like it seems like he wants to be able to make these characters gay, but like he's just held back by, you know, the fact that these are Japanese games, but not only Japanese games, they're Disney games with Disney licenses.
Yeah.
And that like brings a whole lot of corporate stuff into it. But Axel and Roxas.
Oh, dude, like that was my first instant after, like, especially after playing. I mean, I saw it completely in Kingdom Hearts 2, but also playing 350.5 days. Like, that was totally like a huge sign for me. Like, dude, like freaking, these two are so gay for each other.
And then not Axel and Roxas, but all 13 Xehanorts. Xehanort is a dude, and he's cloning himself a bunch because he loves himself so much. And
I feel like that's a narcissism thing, though. When
all the Xehanorts get together, like, they seem like they're oddly, like, into each other. It's really weird.
I think that's just a narcissistic thing. I don't think that's a gay thing, but it could be. I don't know. I don't know what his intent was with that.
I mean, fuck it. It's a gay thing if you want it to be.
True. But I do want to talk about Roxas and Axel, because I was, like, for example, in the DS game for 358.5 days, there's even somebody who comes in as like a love interest. She's definitely way more developed as a character than Kairi is, and she's actually a really interesting character, and I loved her a lot when I played the game. And she's technically kind of supposed to be meant as a love interest for Roxas. You know, that's what they first tried to set it up as and kind of try to end it as. But I didn't believe that at all. You know, I felt more of a relationship and connection with Axel and Roxas. And not because of a yaoi thing or because of the community and stuff like that, but because of the way they write them and the way they interact with each other. Because, you know, I mean, the ending is very sad, and I cried my ass out. And when the female character is gone and stuff like that. But and Roxas' reaction to it was very, like, emotional, and he, you know, you could tell that he loved her, but it wasn't in the same sense of, like, romantic love. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I think he loved her as, like, a good friend and just really cared about her in that sense. But with Roxas and Axel, there's definitely a deeper connection there, I feel like. Because they, like, share each other's deepest thoughts. They're always dangerously eating ice cream on top of that watchtower together. Axel's always... And I think mostly it's... If anything, it's one-sided with Axel.
Yeah. Because
Axel's constantly showing interest in Roxas by always asking if he's okay and always calling him his best friend and, like, you know, just a lot of stuff that's, like, could be hinted at more.
Yeah.
You know, they never flat out didn't say anything, as we've mentioned before. But there's definitely a stronger connection between those two than there is with the actual supposed to be the love interest.
Oh, yeah. I agree completely. And since you brought her up, what's her name again?
Zion.
What?
Zion.
It's
Xion.
Xion. Okay, I mean, we're like looking at this through the lens of queer theory, and I want to mention that Xion is not actually a girl.
Oh, yeah.
Xion is a failed clone of Sora who looks like a girl for some reason, but then looks like Sora. So Xion...
Oh, yeah.
Xion, like, I mean, you could kind of read that as, like, almost being a trans character.
Trans character or someone that's non-binary or...
Yeah, non-binary. Yeah. It's definitely, like...
That's a good point. I never thought about that.
There's some gender bending going on with that character, and, like, it's definitely not, like, you know, it's supposed to be, like, a heteronormative romantic interest between Roxas and her, but then, like, she's actually Sora, so is that relationship, like, that's a queer relationship.
That's a good point. I never really thought about it that way.
Yeah.
You know, like, whether Xion is trans, portrayed as a trans character or as a non-binary character, that would be a queer relationship, and I find that really interesting. Never thought about it because I believe they refer Xion as a she.
Yeah.
Throughout at least like when you don't know anything about her,
Yeah.
But at the end, that's when it becomes a little confusing.
Yeah.
I don't remember any pronouns used for Xion at the end.
That's true. It's true.
Never thought about that.
Yeah. I mean, I just kind of realized it as you were talking about it. But, like, yeah. I mean, gosh. And I want to kind of, like, move on now.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to discuss just everything else about these games. We've talked so much about the characters already, but, like, what about, like, to me, the whole, like, you know, camp, right? Like, campiness it's like, it's like an intentional cheesiness that is seen in a lot of, like, early, like, and modern, like, queer cinema. Like, John Waters' films, Pink Flamingos or Hairspray. It's just filled to the brim with camp. It's done on purpose. Just ridiculous overacting. It's extremely theatrical. It's like RuPaul's Drag Race is an example of camp. And that's just something that like pervades like a lot of queer media. It's something that like queer filmmakers have or television producers have taken on because it goes against heteronormative like ideas. Because the language of cinema and what is seen as not cheesy, like Oscar award-winning movies, that kind of filmic language is seen in movies that feature a lot of like heteronormative ideas, relationships, ideologies, and camp goes against the grain of that. Queerness is about going against the grain of society. Camp is about the same thing. Going against what people expect. And Kingdom Hearts is filled with camp. Their dialogue.
The darkness of your heart is the light to the sky, and the
with my keyhole.
With my keyhole that is filled with darkness, it must be filled with light. And a lot of dark, light, keyhole, keyblades, a lot of that language.
I also want to mention, this is a random side talk, and we're going to come back to camp, but a keyblade is kind of phallic.
I mean, yeah, I guess so.
It's a large, blunt instrument that gets inserted into holes.
Yeah, that's a good point. I really doubt that was intentional.
It doesn't matter if it was intentional, because it is.
That's true, yeah.
It's, there's so many characters being like, oh yeah, put your keyblade in the keyhole.
It's true, it's all guy characters.
It's so cheesy.
It is very cheesy.
It's so campy. Like, the characters are over the top, and the story is makes no sense. It's this complicated ass sci-fi story, but for some reason it has a bunch of Disney worlds and Disney characters.
Would you call it sci-fi?
Yeah, it's sci-fi. It's like sci-fi fantasy. It's really weird.
I mean, yeah, I considered it a fantasy.
There's like spaceships and shit, but
true.
But it's also fantasy because it's like swords and like sorcery. I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know. It's like its own genre. Almost.
It really is its own thing. Like you can't rag on them for not being original. Like they could have just made like a simple Disney game. But no, they had to make it this weird ass like anime thing that like has like sci-fi fantasy.
Well, it is the same creator of Final Fantasy, which Final Fantasy does have some very complicated plots at times. Yeah,
he was head character designer for most of the Final Fantasy games, and now has started recently directing them.
Didn't you say he got a lot of advice from the old Final Fantasy director?
Yeah, Hironobu Sakaguchi.
Mm-hmm.
The reason the series is as weird as it is because Hironobu Sakaguchi said that Kingdom Hearts wouldn't be successful unless it had as complicated a storyline as the Final Fantasy games.
And he was quoted saying this.
And then Tetsuya Nomura took it and ran with it. And he just decided that it needed to be the most complicated story ever developed in games. And it's so, oh my gosh, it's so cheesy.
Oh, I love it. I mean, okay, so from my perspective, I played the game very young. And I barely got shit of the whole entire plot. It just was over my head, All I knew is that it had awesome Disney characters that I loved and some random cute Japanese boys in it that fought stuff. And that's all I needed, honestly. But, I mean, now as I'm older and looking at the plot, it's more interesting in that sense once you can understand it.
Yeah. I think I've got my head wrapped around it because I played every goddamn game trying to understand it. And I'm so, like, into it now and ready for the final game.
Sorry, I keep changing the topic, but
it's okay. I keep changing the topic, too. We're just all over the place. It's Kingdom Hearts. It's awesome. Just play it.
There's a lot to talk about for Kingdom Hearts, and not just, I mean, just restricting it with the queerness in it is just already almost an hour long, and because there's so many aspects you could talk about it for it, and just a fantastic game series. But
it has its ups and downs though.
Of course,
like, it goes from being fantastic to just being absolutely terrible.
Of course, but like that's like that with a lot of things.
Yeah, it's true.
Just like my life.
But it's still, gosh, it's so dark.
Okay, but campiness in Kingdom Hearts, it's very true. It's so true.
It's so true. It's like the set designs are like so, like the world design is so like over the top, super colorful. The heads up displays, the menus, the gameplay, everything is so flashy and bright and colorful. Like it looks like an explosion of Skittles all the time.
And I like what you said earlier when you talked to me about when you played Dream Drop Distance about because that's really the whole main focus is the relationship between Sora and Riku and them being like, you're in my heart, type of thing. But that one you said was probably the most flamboyant looking because of the colors. It was like pinks and purples, and the menu was even like very like flamboyant and colorful and campy. And the characters, like there was pets you can adopt that were like cuddly and cute, and
and you get to pet them, and feed them treats. It's weird.
It's very like, I mean, the whole style of Kingdom Hearts is very campy, but I feel like that's definitely the most out there out of all the games in regards to style.
And then going back to like Sora and Riku, that the whole focus on that game is Sora and Riku's relationship. Like the whole point of that game is to develop their relationship, to show how they're like, it's some weird metaphorical thing about how they're like tied like to each other like by their hearts across dreams.
Yeah.
I don't know. Nomura's weird. I guess this could fit into the category of like campy things in the game, but like his metaphors like end up being literal. Like characters will say something and you'll think they're speaking in metaphors, but they're being serious. So when somebody says like you need to like fight this guy in your dreams, it's like you're not just like fighting like off nightmares in your dreams, you're literally going into your dreams like physically somehow and then like fighting things in your dreams physically while still being awake. It's weird. It doesn't make any sense. But it can't be as hell. Like, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Let's move on. We're like kind of running up on the hour mark here, and I want to talk about what you want to see out of the final installment of the series. Kingdom Hearts 3 is releasing first month of next year.
Yeah, in January 29th, I believe.
January. And it's been 12 years since the last mainline installment, maybe longer, 14 years maybe.
Yeah, I can't think of the exact date, but it's been a while.
But everybody is very stoked. I would imagine the fans that really want to ship Riku and Sora are hoping that they'll get some more of that action.
Oh yeah, and I hope a lot of characters are more developed and more like for example, Sora and Riku and Axel and kind of Roxas, because Roxas is kind of back in Sora. That's another complicated plot thing. But like that relationship too, and I'm just excited to, I mean, obviously the gameplay, everything else about it, I'm excited for. This is the last installment of the Xehanort arc. That's what I believe they're continuing with more games after this, but this is the last of the Xehanort arc. And so I'm just excited to see everything wrap up, and if possibility, see the relationship between Sora and Riku grow. And maybe if it doesn't end up being romantic, that's just kind of how the way that it's going to have to be, especially considering the circumstances surrounding it.
Yeah.
But I do think that they should take advantage of everything they've grown and developed together and really have a really good last stance with them, showing that they're, no matter what, they're going to stick by each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I think what I can conclude from this conversation that we've been having is that, like, it's great to see Kingdom Hearts practicing queerness. It's obviously, it's prevalent enough that fans see it too. A large portion of the fan base, myself and yourself included, see that in the game, And, like, the biggest weakness is they just, like, if that was the intent, they're dodging the issue. They're not like, wholly coming out and saying that this, that any of these characters are gay or anything. But it's the opposite problem that games from the United States are having, because games like Mass Effect. Mass Effect has an abundance of openly gay characters. However, those games have been, like, kind of taken apart by a lot of critics because the people that are writing the relationships in those games aren't writing them as gay relationships. Like, they don't have the elements of what makes a gay relationship a gay relationship. They're writing it as a straight person would write a gay relationship without knowing anything about gay relationships.
Oh, interesting.
I've read from a few scholars that are highly critical of BioWare and, like, the Dragon Age and Mass Effect series, and so it's kind of funny, like, Japan and the US have opposite issues. And those are, like, I think these are the best representatives of each, like, game-making country. Like, so, while Japan, they have a lot of queerness in their games. They just, like, never, like, really make it, like, openly, like, they never openly tell you that something, that a character is gay or that a relationship is gay.
Yeah, they won't even tell you, like, after the game's released.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like a creator comes out and be like, oh, yeah, these two were gay. None of that is told.
Yeah, exactly. But the US will do it, but they just suck at doing it.
Yeah.
Because they don't hire gay writers.
No. It's lack of representation in the creation of these games.
Yeah.
That's the main issue.
Yeah. The game industry in the US has a huge problem with, well, it's similar to the film industry, right? It's like 90% male. It's like 90% male. And, like, they have very few female programmers. And mostly that's a product of this last generation before us.
Yeah.
Because it was mostly men that were going into programming in college.
Yeah.
And so all the writing in games now is from, like, college-educated men that, went to college way back when. More women are getting involved with it now, and then maybe just naturally we'll start to see better representation. I mean, Overwatch does a really good job. I know we criticized it for, like, maybe not representing everybody, but it represents a lot of people, and the characters are really, like, all have their own unique thing, and they're well fleshed out, and they never really treat one of the characters like their backstory or anything doesn't matter. You know what I mean? All the characters get the same, like, fair treatment. They're given the same amount of, like, attention.
I feel like one of the good examples of a good game that really represented it well was in the DLC for Last of Us.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that whole entire time while watching the Ellie, the main character in it, and her friend, Riley, I believe?
Yeah.
That when just from, like, the first, like, after the first scene of them interacting with each other, I was like, they're really cute together, And it feels like it was written by somebody who knows exactly what it's like to be young and gay, or at least bisexual, And they interacted like how they would, like, a girl and a boy would interact, in, like, I don't mean like that type of way, but like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, romantically towards each other without any weird viewpoints like a straight writer would write them.
Yeah, and I think The Last of Us doesn't really make it out as like a big deal. It's
No.
not like supposed to be this huge shocking twist that Ellie's gay.
Unless you're just blind to it.
It's a unique perspective that you don't see in a lot of games where it's a young female character that's like discovering her sexuality. Maybe that's seen a lot in literature, but not much in games.
No, definitely not. That's why it shook everyone.
Yeah.
Because it was so well developed, and everyone shipped him even before their kiss happened.
Yeah.
And then when the kiss happened, everyone's like, "Oh, it's actually real this time?"
Yeah, yeah. And then, like, one really doesn't expect that from a game with zombies and horrific murders and stuff. Like, so, I agree with you. I think that's a really good example of how to do it right.
And I think we're getting there. I think it's just going to take time.
Yeah, it takes time, and then it takes, like, indie games have had it figured out for a long time.
It's true.
Indie games such as, like, Gone Home. It's because, like, those developers that come from unique, perspectives where maybe they're a minority, maybe they're gay or they're trans, they have more access to be able to make indie games because the tools are there for them to make those, but it's harder for them to get into the industry.
It's true.
So indie games have had it figured out for a long time, and I feel like indie games are slowly seeping into the mainstream where like it's starting to affect AAA games companies because AAA games companies are looking at these really popular indie games that have gay characters, and they're thinking, hey, this is like a whole audience like of people that are interested in these games, because some of these are really popular like on Steam and stuff, like Daddy Dating Simulator or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Where you're a dad and you have to go around and find other dads.
It was developed by Game Grumps.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason why it became so popular is because Game Grumps was able to advertise it.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of Undertale, because the main character is non-binary.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
They never refer to the main character.
That's true. I mean, what's kind of cool about that is it's like there's not many non-binary game characters in games.
No.
But it's like that's the way to appeal to the most people.
It's true.
Everybody can find something to identify with a character when you don't make the character a gendered character.
It's true.
So, I think that's interesting. And I hope to see some gayness in Kingdom Hearts 3. I want to see...
Bring on the gay.
I want to see Riku and Sora making out.
I want them to be in a loving embrace. As like there's like a sunset on the cliff.
They already had their loving embrace.
I want
in
another
Kingdom
one.
Hearts 2. I want them to just make out. Give me an M rating. I want a Riku and Sora sex scene.
Kyrie's just watching in the background. No, I agree. I hope I can see more of that in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm just still excited for the game. I've been waiting freaking 12, 13 years for this. You've only waited like 5 months.
Less
Not even.
than that.
Like 3 months.
2 months.
2 months for this game. Little spoiled butt.
All right. We hope you enjoyed the show. We're going to wrap it here. We're tired. It's finals week.
11:30 p.m.
And
Got a lot too
the
much
last
stuff.
thing we should be doing, right? Well, it's not finals week. We're like 4 weeks out from finals.
We're only 2 weeks out.
Oh, God. But
We don't got time for this shit. We just gotta go.
we're going to wrap it. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll leave you with some cool tunes from the games again.
Thank you for having me on here.
Well, we hope to have you again next time, if there is a next time.
If there is a next time. Thank you so much.
No, it was great to have you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.